They say a restaurant is more than just food and four walls, it's got a heart, and that heart is kept beating by the people who serve, cook, and clean. From the outside, my diner, Southern Comfort, looked like it was just tired. The paint was faded, the open sign flickered with uncertainty, and the crowds that once wrapped around the block had dwindled to a few loyal regulars. But I was about to learn the truth was far more broken than a flickering sign. I was about to discover the heart of my family's legacy wasn't just weak, it was being poisoned. Deliberately, methodically, and cruelly, from the inside out. My name is Grant Ellis, and this diner was my inheritance. My grandparents built it from the ground up on secret family recipes and a belief that good food could soothe any soul. For 50 years, it was a landmark. When my parents took over, they kept that legacy sparkling. Then, it was my turn. For the first few years, everything was great. But over the last 18 months, something had gone sour. It started small. A few bad online reviews complaining about cold food or slow service. I'd call my manager, Rick, a guy I'd hired on a recommendation. He was always so reassuring. Just a couple of grumpy customers, Grant. You know how it is. I handled it. Then the whispers started from old family friends. The place feels tense, Grant. It's not the same. The numbers proved it. Profits dipped, then plunged. Worst of all was the staff turnover. We used to have servers who'd been with us for decades. Now, my accountant was flagging payroll for new hires almost every week. Good people were quitting without notice. I tried to manage it from 3 hours away, consumed by another business, and I trusted Rick to be my eyes and ears. I trusted him to protect my grandparents' dream. That was my first mistake. My second was buying his excuses. He'd blame the economy, finding good help, a new competitor. Every problem had a plausible, hollow explanation. The last straw was a series of expense reports that made zero sense. Massive orders for premium ingredients, yet the reviews savaged the food quality. Maintenance fees for brand new equipment. It felt like the place was being hollowed out. My lawyer, who'd advised my father for 30 years, put it bluntly. Grant, you're too far away. Rick tells you what you want to hear. If you want to know what's really killing Southern Comfort, you have to go in there yourself. But not as the owner. You have to go in as a nobody. So, we cooked up a plan. I would be Gus, a man in his late 40s looking for a new start, applying for a job as a kitchen trainee. My application was sent, and Rick, without a real interview, told me to come in for a trial shift. It was almost too easy. And that's how I ended up in my car across the street, just watching my own diner. I wasn't Grant Ellis, successful heir to a culinary legacy. I was Gus, a man with a fake resume and a knot of dread in his stomach. I pulled on a worn baseball cap, put on a pair of thick-rimmed glasses I didn't need, and took a deep breath. I was walking in to find a problem. I had no idea I was about to walk into a conspiracy, heralded by the sight of a young woman trying to do her job with a broken hand. Section 1. The bell above the door chimed a cheerful welcome that felt like a lie. The air inside was thick with a tense quiet. A few customers were scattered at the tables, speaking in low murmurs. No one was laughing. The clatter of a fork on a plate seemed to echo. A tall, wiry man I recognized as Rick strode towards me. He had a thin smile that never came close to reaching his cold, assessing eyes. He looked me up and down, a flicker of disdain in his expression. "You're Gus?" he asked, his voice clipped. "Yes, sir." "Ready for my trial," I replied, trying to sound a little too eager. "Right. Don't call me sir. I'm Rick. You'll start in the back with the dish crew. We'll see if you can handle that. Through those doors. Stay out of the way." He gestured dismissively towards the kitchen and turned his back on me. So much for a welcome. This was the man I'd entrusted with everything. As I walked towards the kitchen, I scanned the dining room. The tables had a thin, greasy film. The salt shakers were sticky. These weren't just small slips, they were signs of a deep lack of pride. And then I saw her. She was moving between tables with a painful, cautious grace. She couldn't have been more than 22, her hair tied back in a ponytail, a few strands stuck to her damp forehead. It was her left arm that grabbed my attention. It was in a stark white cast from her knuckles to her elbow. In her right hand, she was trying to balance a heavy tray with 2 plates and 2 tall glasses of iced tea. The strain was written all over her face, in the tight line of her jaw. She got to a table with an elderly couple and carefully lowered the tray to a nearby chair. She managed a genuine, warm smile that seemed impossible in this room. "Here we are, folks," she said, her voice soft. "Your southern scramble and the country breakfast. Can I get you anything else?" The man nodded, his eyes drifting to her cast. "You're new, aren't you, dear? What happened to your arm?" Her smile faltered for a split second. "Just a little accident, sir." "I'm perfectly fine," she said, her tone a little too bright. "I'll be right back with that coffee." As she turned, her eyes met mine for a moment. I saw a flash of exhaustion and maybe embarrassment. I gave her a small, encouraging nod. She looked away quickly and retreated to the coffee station, her shoulders slumped. A cold knot formed in my stomach. This was completely, utterly wrong. No one should be forced to work a server's job with a broken hand. It was a safety hazard, a massive liability, and just plain inhumane. Why would Rick allow this? Why would any manager let this happen? Was he that short-staffed? Or was this something darker? Was it simple cruelty? I pushed through the kitchen doors into total chaos. It was a symphony of disaster. Pots clanged, a cook yelled at a prep worker, and the floor was slick with something. A sullen teenager pointed me to a mountain of dirty dishes. "You're the new guy. Start scrubbing." For the next hour, I washed dishes, my hands in greasy water, but my mind was out in the dining room with that waitress. I learned her name was Naomi from the cooks. "Poor Naomi," one of them muttered. "Rick's riding her harder than anyone." "Kid's got grit, though," another added. "Showing up with that busted hand. Says she can't afford to miss a day. Can't afford to miss a day." The words echoed in my head. We paid a decent wage. But we also have paid sick leave. I wrote the policy myself. Why couldn't she afford to take time off to heal? Later, I saw Rick storm into the kitchen. "Naomi," he barked at the pass-through window. I watched as she hurried over. "Yes, Rick. Table 7 has been waiting for their check for 10 minutes. What are you doing?" "Daydreaming," he snarled, his voice low but sharp enough to cut. "I'm sorry, Rick," she said, her voice trembling. "I had to brew more decaf, and then table 4 needed." "Excuses," he snapped, crumpling the ticket and throwing it at her. It bounced off her chest. "I want speed. If that arm is slowing you down, maybe you don't belong here. There are a dozen people who'd kill for your job. Understand?" "Yes, Rick," she whispered, bending down with difficulty to pick up the crumpled paper. I felt a surge of pure, white-hot rage. It took every ounce of my self-control not to rip off my disguise and fire him on the spot. But I couldn't. Not yet. Firing him would be easy, but it wouldn't explain the bad food, the financial black holes, or why all my best employees had fled. This ugly scene was just another symptom. I had to find the disease. And I had a sinking feeling that the young woman with the broken hand and the unbreakable spirit was at the very center of it all. Section 2. The rest of the day was a masterclass in mismanagement. As Gus, I was promoted from the dish pit to food prep, which just gave me a closer look at the rot. The lettuce was wilted. The tomatoes were mealy. I saw a line cook pull out a tray of pre-cooked bacon that was disturbingly gray. When I asked, he shrugged. Rick changed suppliers. Cheaper stuff. Tells us to make it work. That seemed to be the new motto. The staff were all just making it work. I saw them trying. The cooks told dark jokes when Rick was out of earshot. The other servers would quietly help Naomi, clearing a table or refilling drinks when Rick wasn't looking. It was a small, silent rebellion, good people trapped in a bad situation. I needed to talk to Naomi, away from Rick's prying eyes. My chance came during the afternoon lull. I saw her slip into the dry storage room, looking exhausted. Rick was busy arguing with a delivery driver. This was it. I grabbed 2 bottles of water and followed her. She was standing in a narrow aisle between shelves of canned goods, her back to me, her shoulders shaking. She was crying silently. "Naomi?" I said softly from the doorway. She jumped, quickly wiping her eyes. "Oh. Gus. I'm sorry. I was just..." "It's okay," I said, stepping inside and handing her a water. "You look like you could use this." She took it. "Thank you." She stared at the floor, not meeting my eyes. "That's a nasty break," I said, nodding at her cast. "Must be tough, working with that." A dry, bitter laugh escaped her. "Not ideal," she admitted, finally looking at me. Her eyes were red but defiant. "But rent is due." "Rick seems tough," I ventured carefully. Her face hardened. "Rick is a bully," she whispered. "He enjoys making people feel small." "Have you thought about reporting him?" I asked, faking ignorance. "To the owner?" She laughed again, this time without any humor. "The owner? Grant Ellis? He hasn't set foot in here in over a year. He doesn't care. As long as the money rolls in, why would he? To him, we're just numbers on a spreadsheet." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. To them, I wasn't just absent, I was a negligent, greedy owner. I was part of the problem. I had to swallow the bitter guilt and stay in character. "Still," I pressed, "making you work with a broken hand, that's not just unsafe, it's illegal." "I fell off my bike a couple of weeks ago," she said, her voice distant. "Doctor said I needed 6 weeks off. When I told Rick, he said if I took the time, my job wouldn't be here when I got back. He told me the company's sick leave policy was under review. Under review. My sick leave policy." He was lying to her, breaking the law to intimidate her. "He does it to everyone," she continued, her voice trembling with anger and fear. "Changes schedules last minute. Docks our pay for tiny mistakes. And the tips." She stopped, biting her lip and glancing at the door. "The tips?" I prompted. "We all pool our tips," she said, the words tumbling out. "It's supposed to be split at the end of the night. But it never adds up. Ever. We have a great, busy night and walk away with next to nothing. When we ask, Rick just shows us some spreadsheet and says we're crazy. He makes you doubt yourself. Skimming tips. It was pure theft, stolen right from the pockets of his staff. But that's not the worst part," she whispered, her eyes wide. "He's ruining the food. On purpose. I think he's trying to run this place into the ground." This was the piece I couldn't figure out. Why would he do that? "I don't know for sure," she said, shaking her head. "But I hear him on the phone, talking in low voices. I've seen him meeting some slick-looking guy in a suit out in the alley. And he's changed the recipes. Your grandparents' famous fried chicken. He switched the buttermilk for regular milk and uses cheaper flour. The secret spice mix is just salt, pepper, and paprika now. It's like he wants the customers to hate it here. It's like he wants the place to fail." My blood ran cold. This was it. The disease. It wasn't just incompetence, it was a calculated campaign of destruction. The bad reviews, the staff exodus, the bogus finances, it all clicked. Rick was driving the diner into the ground so someone, the man in the suit, could buy it for pennies on the dollar. He wasn't just stealing from the tip jar, he was trying to steal my family's entire legacy. Suddenly, the kitchen doors swung open. "What is this, a social club?" Rick boomed. "Get back to work. Both of you." Naomi flinched and scurried past him. Rick's cold eyes landed on me. "I'm watching you, Gus," he sneered. "I know a slacker when I see one." I just nodded, my mind a storm of rage. My undercover mission was no longer about figuring out why the diner was failing. It was about saving it. The tipping point came 2 hours later, at the height of the dinner rush. Naomi was a blur of motion, clearly in pain but pushing through. I saw her at the bus station, trying to lift a heavy tub of dirty dishes. It was an awkward job for two good hands, for her, it was impossible. Another server started to help her, but one venomous look from Rick sent him retreating. Rick wanted her to struggle. He wanted her to fail in front of everyone. Naomi took a deep breath and gave a mighty heave. The tub rose, teetered for a heart-stopping second, and then crashed to the floor. Glass shattered. Plates exploded. The diner fell silent. Every head turned to Naomi, frozen amidst the wreckage. Rick moved like a snake. "You clumsy, useless girl." He roared for the whole room to hear. "Look at this mess. That's coming out of your pay. Every last plate. Do you have any idea how incompetent you are?" Tears welled in Naomi's eyes. I'm sorry, Rick. It slipped. It slipped, he mocked. Or maybe you just can't do the job. Maybe someone with a little accident has no business on my floor. He gestured at her cast. You are a liability. You are worthless to me. That was it. The dam broke. Seeing her humiliated, watching this carefully orchestrated cruelty play out, I couldn't be Gus anymore. As Naomi finally broke down, covering her face with her good hand, my rage turned cold and sharp. I untied my greasy apron, dropped it on the floor, and walked out of the kitchen. A cook grabbed my arm. "Gus, what are you doing? He'll kill you." I just shook my head. "No," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "He won't." I walked through the swinging doors into the silent dining room, right up to Rick. He turned to me, his face a mask of contempt. "And where do you think you're going? Get a mop before I fire you too." I looked him straight in the eye. The voice that came out wasn't Gus's. It was mine. "You're not going to fire anyone," I said calmly. "But I am." Section 3. Rick stared at me, his face a comical mixture of confusion and fury. "What did you just say to me?" he spat. "Get a mop. Now." I didn't move. I slowly reached up, took off the baseball cap, and removed the glasses. I watched recognition, then horror, dawn on his face. He'd seen my picture on company paperwork he'd obviously never bothered to read. His jaw went slack. The sneer melted away. "My name," I said, my voice carrying through the silent room, "is Grant Ellis. And I own this restaurant. I own the tables, the chairs, the plates you just threatened to charge this young woman for, and the floor you're standing on. And as of this moment, you are trespassing." A collective gasp went through the room. Customers stared, forks frozen midair. The other servers looked back and forth between us, shock turning into hope. Naomi had stopped crying, her tear-streaked face a picture of pure astonishment. Rick's face had gone ghost white. Mr. Ellis," he stammered, all his bravado gone. I didn't know. What are you doing here?" Dressed like that? I'm here because of you, Rick, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I'm here because my family's legacy is being dismantled by a common thief. I've been in that kitchen all day. I've seen the wilted lettuce. I've watched you terrorize the staff. I just watched you humiliate a dedicated employee and illegally threaten to fire her for taking the sick leave she is entitled to by law. I stepped closer. And that's just today. Let's talk about the tip money you've been skimming for months. That's called theft, Rick. Let's talk about the doctored expense reports and the fake maintenance charges. Let's talk about your secret meetings in the alley with the man from Pioneer Dining Group, the competitor who suddenly wants to buy this property. At the mention of Pioneer Dining, Rick flinched. I had him. A call to my lawyer during my break confirmed my suspicions. He wasn't just a bully, he was a corporate saboteur. You were hired to run this restaurant, I said, my voice rising with controlled fury. Instead, you ran it into the ground. You drove away good people, served bad food, and created a culture of fear, all so your friends could buy the wreckage for pennies on the dollar. You didn't just fail at your job, Rick. You committed fraud. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was cornered. Get your personal belongings, I commanded. And get out. An independent auditor will be here in the morning, and my lawyer will be in touch about the money you've stolen from this company and these employees. You have 5 minutes. He stood there, paralyzed, then wilted under the weight of dozens of stares. Without a word, he turned and walked stiffly to the back office. The spell was broken. A few customers started clapping, and soon the whole diner joined in. I turned to Naomi, still standing by the wreckage, and offered her my hand. Are you all right? I helped her to her feet. You're really him, she whispered. I am, I said softly. And I am so sorry. I'm sorry for what you went through. I'm sorry I was so absent I let a man like that take over. What you said in the storage room, you were right. I let you all down. That ends today. I turned to the rest of the staff. To all of you, I said, my voice strong. I apologize. I promise you, things are going to change, starting now. We're going back to our original suppliers, our original recipes, and a culture of respect. Your stolen tips will be repaid. Your sick leave is reinstated, effective immediately. Then I looked at Naomi. I have never seen anyone show more grace and dedication under fire than I saw from you today. This restaurant needs a leader with heart. If you'll accept, I'd like to offer you the position of interim manager. Her eyes widened. Manager? Me? But, my hand. Please subscribe and like video.